In this video, we are talking about the D23 Expo 2022 Parks panel. There was a lot, and I mean a lot, to discuss today. I brought my good friend with me, Vash Sky, coming in via phone, though, this time. Very interesting show, but we have to break this down. It's going to be very, very interesting. Coming up next on OG 55. Welcome aboard to another episode of OG 55. We're talking about the D23 Expo Parks panel that just ended not too long ago. I am bringing on my friend, my producer, the man who wears many titles, Mr. Vash Sky. I'm going to give him a proper intro, though, because, you know, he's Mr. Vash Sky. We got to do it right. Here we go.
And now, the man with many titles, bringing you juicy news and info. Squeezed fresh right from the Grove, Mr. Vash Sky.
There he is. There he is. Dre, welcome back, buddy.
Hey, and I am happy to be here. I am I am floored. I'm floored by the intro every single time I hear it. I think it sounds pretty cool. It sounds pretty cool, I'm not gonna lie. Trying to stay humble, but man, that intro, it gets you hyped. I can't lie about that.
Oh, brother, it really is a great intro to to all you do here, sir. And if you could let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media, my friend.
Hey, best place to find me is going to be at Vash Sky on Twitter. That's going to be V as in Victor, ASHSKY. Then the Twitter should pop up. And as Christine Wastelands McCarthy would say, for all your robust discussion, you can find it right there. And you want to follow me? Well, it's going to be the channel you're watching right now, the Orange Grove 55 at Freshly Squeezed, your source for juicy news and info, squeezed fresh, all right, from the Grove. Oh, man, I do apologize about coming in on the phone there. We're headed down to your neck of the woods right now. So I think we just passed into California not too long ago. So we're still on there, but we still wanted to give the viewers at home a great show. And hopefully this is adequate. If I cut out at any time, don't worry, we'll reconnect and we'll make it up nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Do not even sweat it, brother. Do not even sweat it. You're coming in good right now. So just to kind of kick this whole thing off, I thought what we would do is start off with Disneyland Resort, because, you know, OG 55, we kind of focus on Disneyland Resort.
Absolutely.
And it looks like, surprisingly, actually DCA got most of the love at this expo, which kind of threw me for a little bit of a loop overall. Before we dip into this event, this Avengers Multiverse ticket, before we kind of dip into that, like, what are your overall thoughts on that, you know, in terms of like what was announced for DCA and what really kind of wasn't for Disneyland? Did you kind of notice that too, or?
I absolutely did. I was actually quite shocked that of the omissions. Now, not so much of like Tomorrowland, for example. We kind of knew there was a little bit of a long shot attached to that one, even though there had been smoke, maybe not quite enough fire to bring it to light here at this D23 Expo. But honestly, we got a whole lot outside of that. I mean, honestly, it was actually really surprising, to be honest with you. We finally got a date for the introduction of Mandalorian and Grogu to Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, which I thought, hey, you know, it was something that when it first announced, I know OG and I and George, we were all extremely excited about seeing this kind of beloved character introduced into Star Wars Galaxy's Edge in a land that desperately needs it, you know? and to include them in, and they got John Favreau out there. I thought that was really, really phenomenal. Really, really, really well done overall. So I was excited about that. But the one kind of glaring omission as it relates to Disneyland is no update on the Treehouse. I mean, I was shocked. I would have sworn that Kim Irvine would have been out on that stage and talking about what they were going to bring in the Treehouse, and we had nary a word of it. Oh, gee, what did you think about that?
Very surprising. Very surprising. Some of the things that I thought were kind of a given didn't happen.
Yeah.
We didn't get really well. We got nothing on the Treehouse, like you said. We got really nothing on even the Tiana's Bayou Adventure. I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, I was expecting a lot more with that. I was expecting to see some animatronics. I was expecting to see maybe some set pieces, something. I still don't know what this ride is going to be. And that's why it's like, I can't even really say how I feel about it at this point, because I don't even know what it is. They don't show anything. It's crazy.
I mean, I honestly, I don't think they have anything to show. I think this feels like a fly-by-night, seat-of-their-pants kind of thing where they're kind of figuring out as they go along, as it goes. And honestly, it's just kind of been underwhelming. And it's not to say that it won't be overwhelming when we actually go on this attraction when it finally opens, but it's just we don't really have that much to be excited over. Just like you said, and that's why it's like, you know, they're really, there's not really any thoughts to go along with it, because it's just we have nothing. I mean, honestly, and to speak for George for a second, who wanted to be here, George was he was kind of underwhelmed himself. In fact, you know, we got basically the same concept art that they've been pitching us for the last year or so, 2 years almost. And then a new effect, which was a little underwhelming to say the least. But OG, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it was just there was not a whole lot with that. I was when they brought the model out and everything. I even said it yesterday.
Yeah.
When they brought the model out, I was expecting, okay, well, this is going to be the focus then of the panel. That it would be Tiana and Toontown, and that really didn't happen. We got a lot of stuff.
Right.
We got a lot of stuff. Like, this is actually, in terms of Disneyland Resort, in my opinion, overall, I think this is one of the healthier expos. I mean, I remember 2017, the only thing we really got was Pixar Pier. Even 2019, we just got a couple pieces of artwork for Avengers Campus. This is definitely a meaty expo, but it was meaty in areas I wasn't expecting. And we're going to dive into all that. But we finally did get the official confirmation and a little bit of detail about this new Avengers Multiverse attraction. Now, this is interesting, and Andre, I know you're on the phone, so I'm just kind of showing. It's a WDWNT article with the artwork and a little bit of a description here. It just says, you know, the new Avengers Multiverse attraction will include a King Thanos, that quote unquote one, coming to Avengers Campus. So this is kind of interesting. This is a whole like alternate kind of universe, multiverse, as they call it in the MCU, where this is kind of like almost like a what if attraction, where what if Thanos won, right? I mean, this kind of blew my mind a little bit. This is actually, we talked a lot yesterday about kind of like the story, the story like gymnastics they do with like things like this retheme with Splash Mountain, things like that. It's kind of convoluted. This is kind of, and this isn't a retheme, but this kind of is the way that this is the concept I want to see like Disney do more of, like these really creative, unique storylines that are a little bit more innovative and interesting. Like this is very, I like this concept. I would want to see a movie based on this. This is more interesting to me than a lot of the Marvel movies that have come out lately. Like this is dope, you know, the concept.
Absolutely.
Uh-oh.
Very creative. This is very.
Oh, you're good now. You're good. You cut out for just a second, but you're good now.
Oh, sorry about that. I do apologize. No, I very imaginative, very creative. It's just, you know, it's not something I would have necessarily kind of pegged as something that the direction they would kind of ultimately go in. But, you know, we had been hearing about the previous iteration of this attraction, how it was going to be very Wakanda focused and so forth. It was going to be kind of bringing the Avengers Infinity War to life, essentially, that kind of final battle there. But this goes in a completely different direction. And I quite like it. I mean, if you look at Imagineering staple attractions like Rise of the Resistance, for example, it's very derivative of Episode 7, right? The Force Awakens. You're basically captured in a very similar way that Poe is. And then you have to, kind of break out, not so dissimilarly to that, to the kind of introduction to that film. This is completely different, completely brand new story, completely brand new kind of a situation that we find ourselves in, an entirely new scenario. And I like it. I like this kind of imaginative thinking. We were just talking about OG, about how, there was almost like a creative, I don't know, I don't want to say creative bankruptcy within the halls of Imagineering, but it just seemed to be a little bit, I don't know, stale in terms of the creative output. And this right here, I mean, teaming up with Marvel, and bring this attraction to life, this has some really incredible possibilities. And the story sounds fascinating to me, honestly.
Well, and the interesting thing with the concept art, and you've seen it and everything, but the interesting thing about the concept art is all the characters that we see here, some of them look like real physical characters, but some of them look animated. Like we're going to dive into this multiverse, and some of them will be the characters, like the physical flesh and blood characters, but it looks like some of them are also in cartoon version. So that's kind of interesting. It's
so
very
kind of like a what if come to life.
Right. It's fascinating. So it's like you're entering this multiverse, and maybe you'll go through these whole areas that are animated like a cartoon, and then you'll go into like the more like real physical places, and kind of like that, the Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, how he kind of goes into these different worlds, right? And it's kind of this weird kind of thing. I'm kind of getting that energy from the concept art. What do you think? I mean, in terms of what you saw and noticed.
Well, I guess I wasn't viewing it on a larger enough screen in order to see those particular details. That's quite fascinating because you bring it up astutely in that scene in Multiverse of Madness where Doctor Strange and I believe America Chavez gets blasted into a portal, coming off of their first encounter with Wanda. You can see that they're not just going through alternative versions of themselves that you would kind of necessarily most associate with the multiverse, but they're going through different, like you said, animation styles and stuff, and they're kind of going through these kind of these worlds that are profoundly different than the one that you and I kind of inhabit ourselves. So the idea that they would bring in kind of the animated characters, a part of this incredible multiverse that Marvel finds itself in right now, that is really ambitious. I had no idea, didn't even think of that, didn't even consider that. But this multiverse concept really opens the door to so much possibility, so much flexibility for the attraction going forward. Yep. And honestly, with as many characters as are featured, I think we all kind of, between, OG, George and myself, when we were kind of talking in lead up to the show, I think we were all kind of getting the sense that it's probably going to have some randomization. It's probably going to have a lot of rewritability. Mm-hmm. And maybe the villains that you face are going to be different. Maybe the characters that you encounter are going to be different. And that right there for the Anaheim populace is absolutely phenomenal. So good.
It is. And we've seen this on kind of on a lesser scale or lesser ambitious scale with Avengers Campus already when it comes to every new Disney Plus show that comes out. Like I remember when Loki premiered, like every single version of Loki like premiered in the land when that episode premiered. And I can see stuff like that happening here with this attraction. Like let's say the new movie is, Avengers, was it Kang Dynasty or something? And characters from that movie show up now in this attraction when that movie drops in theaters. There's so much flexibility here, and that's why the multiverse thing is really attractive for both creatives and for the suits, because you can really cross promote all kinds of stuff. Now, you myself and George were talking on the phone a little bit ago about this concept art, which is kind of, I mean, it shows a lot of characters and what have you, and it shows a ride vehicle with people sitting in it, but it's kind of vague in terms of like what kind of experience we can expect. George and I were kind of saying we got the energy of it, like it being like a Transformers or Spider-Man thing, like at Universal. What's your kind of vibe in terms of like what kind of attraction? A coaster, simulator? What are you kind of feeling from the little that we know about it with this artwork, basically?
It's kind of, I don't know, I have kind of mixed feelings about this, to be fair. I mean, the concept sounds breathtaking. These kind of new characters, you know, being, thrust into this attraction the way they are sounds awesome. Really, really cool stuff. It's kind of funny. I don't know if you heard this part of the panel. I know you were going around doing some errands and stuff like that, so you may not have gotten the audio of this, but Josh Giamaro was talking about how it's like, oh yeah, we're bringing characters into Avengers Campus, and you know they talk about Wanda, then they talk about Loki, then they talk about Captain America, then Loki, and then they talk about they keep these kind of new iterations of these characters come in, and that was the lead up to this attraction. So it sounds like to me that yes, they will be integrating the characters that you see within the campus, on the night of their show's release or whatever it happens to be. That'll be also incorporated into this attraction, which sounds awesome. As far as how to do that, I think we all kind of thought it was going to be kind of a spring-based attraction right from jump, but this kind of this concept that we see there. To me, I mean, it looks a little bit simulator-ish. It looks a little bit like Star Tours, a little bit, kind of simulator, or maybe even a kind of a theater presentation, not unlike, I don't know, Captain EO or any of those others. It didn't honestly evoke the same kind of feelings or reactions that I had to the original e-ticket concept that they debuted in 2019. We're still kind of questioning what it actually is. Again, you guys could be right. I mean, honestly, it could be a Transformers type or Spider-Man type scenario, which does lend itself to infinite amount of possibilities in terms of, attraction layout, the use of screens versus, projections versus audiomatronics. Like there is some upside to that kind of iteration of an attraction. I guess we're just going to have to see.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. Yeah, the artwork doesn't really show you a whole lot, because this could be multiple things. This could be, like you said, a Star Tours ride based on this concept art. It could be a Spider-Man at Universal or a Transformers type of attraction.
And that's definitely on purpose for sure.
Right. And it can even be a coaster. I mean, to some degree, like a Cosmic Rewind or something. Like there's really no definitive. It can even be a Rise of the Resistance with that ride vehicle. It could just be about anything. So that's fascinating.
Right.
It's very fascinating. Now, I wanted to ask you, because you're more of a Universal guy than I am. And if you don't know the answer to this, that's fine. Sure. It just kind of popped in my head. I'm just kind of curious. But I know that Universal had a lock on that Spider-Man Transformers tech, like patent wise, for years. Was that did that ever fall off? Like where Disney, if they wanted to, they can utilize that technology, or is that something that it's hands off forever?
It was more the KUKA arm technology that really kind of, they had a lock on. They had a 10-year exclusive contract with KUKA on that technology. As far as the kind of Spider-Man Transformers technology, I'm not sure if that, I'm sure it's patented in some regard, but as far as the particulars, I'm really not up to snuff on. However, I will say, Disney does have access to the EMV technology that we enjoy every single day at Indiana Jones Adventure. So, and essentially, Spider-Man or Transformers is kind of a take on that. So, could we theorize that, this attraction might use a new state-of-the-art version of the EMV technology? I think that is that could be likely in this case. There's also something I was going to add, and I'm trying to think of what that was. Look, the concept is very vague, and I think that's for a reason. I think they're still mulling over exactly what's going to be featured in here. I think they want it's definitely going to still be an interactive attraction. I think that was a big component of the first iteration of this. And I think the second iteration where you have, hey, you're going to battle alongside the heroes, they're going to need our help, that kind of thing. It sounds to me that this is still going to go into the interactive direction, but I think a more visceral type experience than what we experience right now on Spider-Man Web Slingers.
100%. Now I want to pivot a little bit to, we're going to stay in Avengers Campus, but we're going to pivot now to this Project Exo, which we've seen a little bit of this, I think at the Destination D back in November, I believe it was. These massive,
and they have a new display of Exo technology at D23 Expo itself. So they've had that on display for the last 2 days here. And we were all like, we kind of, people kind of forgot about it, but they were making it a note of it there. OG, go ahead and take it away for us.
Yeah, no, and it looks like they're putting it to good use. They're going to bring the Hulk to Avengers Campus. Now, this is fascinating. I'm kind of right now, just so you know, to kind of visualize Dre. I'm showing the article from WDWNT about this Hulk. You can see Tomorrow and Feige standing next to it. It's a pretty massive figure. This thing stands probably, I don't even know. Does it even say how tall this thing is? It's very tall. I'm guessing 10, 12 feet or something.
10, 12. That's about what I picked it as. It was very, very tall. I will say the little interaction they had between, they do these kind of pre-recorded steals with the characters that come out. Yeah. I think we saw this with Stan Lee and Iron Man at one point. Doesn't always quite work, but I mean, the tech was extremely impressive. Absolutely, for sure.
Yeah. And this is really what Avengers Campus needs, like, I don't know, like when you walk into Avengers Campus, right? Like it feels like Spidey land. It really does. You walk in, everything is web and Spider-Man themed. Right. And you got that one build, you got the Quinjet, okay, and you got the Avengers building, but for the most part, everything just feels like Spider-Man. This is what the land really needed. Something different, something kind of like, okay, another character, something really unique. It's going to be incredible walking into Avengers Campus and seeing this giant Hulk just kind of storming through the area, right? It's going to add so much kinetic energy, number one. Number two, it brings something different. It's not Spider-Man, which is good. I just think this is really a great move, and I think it's going to be a massive hit. This is going to be such a massive hit. And you want to talk about PhotoPass money? Oh, my God.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, you just stack up dollar bills now, OG. I mean, that's going to be a huge deal, or meet and greet kind of experience for, I guess, at Avengers Campus. Absolutely, without question. It's interesting. They kind of, who was the gentleman that plays Bruce Banner?
Oh man,
I can't remember his name.
Mark Ruffalo.
Mark Ruffalo. Yeah. He, I guess, they kind of had a skit where he kind of Skyped in or whatever, and he kind of kind of disturbs the show a little bit, and he's like, hey, I just want to. You have all these colors where you have the kind of the red of Spider-Man and the kind of blue and white from Captain America. Could we add a little green in there? And that's what preceded this showcase of this kind of new character that's going to be walking around in there. So to your point, OG, I think they were kind of referencing that in their skit, that it needs a little bit more variety. It needs a little bit more, presentation of the kind of wider MCU universe that we kind of know and expect and want to see from Avengers Campus. It's funny because this isn't Disney's first foray into larger than life characters being brought inside of these kind of themed lands. I remember they had a kind of version of the kind of suit tech or whatever that the those kind of colonists were bringing to Abadar, to Pandora, right? Do you remember that back in the day when they had those kind of suits? So they've kind of been working on this for a while. It's really great to see this implementation with a character that is so beloved and everybody recognizes.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. It's a great addition. I think it's gonna be a huge success. Overall, I'm really excited about Avengers Campus. Those are basically the two big things coming to Avengers Campus, and they're like, not to be too on the nose, they're really big. I mean, these are really big. I mean, between the Hulk thing, which I think is awesome, and this big, huge kind of e-ticket, which I think will be pretty spectacular. We'll see. We gotta find more information now. But I think overall, they're really giving Avengers Campus really what it needs. Right now, the whole thing is kind of anchored by a ride, Mission Breakout, that's been around since 2017, I believe, or 16, something like that.
Yeah.
And Web Slingers, which Web Slingers is really like a kind of like a D ticket. They really need another big ride, and they're getting they call it an e-ticket. Hopefully it lives up to that moniker. But I think that with another e-ticket and with this Hulk thing and stuff, I think that this land is kind of finally coming into its own. And we have really, for such a little amount of space. When you talk about Avengers Campus, it's not a big footprint at all. You're going to have this Avengers Multiverse e-ticket. You're going to have Mission Breakout, which is also an e-ticket, and then you're going to have a D ticket in Spider-Man. That's a solid land for considering the relatively small footprint it has.
I have to absolutely agree. I mean, this is a land that it's a little land that could kind of thing. It's just kind of this, you're stuffing what is basically the biggest franchise that the world has ever seen into a space that occupied Bugs Land, essentially, right? It's this little corridor between Cars Land and Hollywood Land as we know it. And to have these kind of additions, be injected into this, I know Kevin Feige has really been kind of pushing for it. He even said right when the land debuted, hey, this is not all that you're going to see. We're going to add more stuff on the way. And I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled to kind of see this burgeoning land come into its own. And I think this is only the start of many more of these type of expansions to come for this land. Hollywood Land is definitely next on the list for sure.
Yeah. Now we're going to stay in DCA, but we're going to pivot. We're going to go over to Pacific Wharf. Now, this is one of those kind of like surprise announcements that really no one saw coming. But I've seen actually, I think I've actually done videos on this, like back in like 2016, 2017, about bringing San Francisco into DCA because of its obvious connection to California. In a kind of a weird reimagined kind of way. It's not technically California, but it's very much inspired by San Francisco and what have you. But I mean, I guess Disney's going to retheme the Pacific Wharf to San Francisco from Big Hero 6. Now, this is fascinating because on a number of levels. Because number one, the Big Hero 6 is actually a Marvel property. I mean, it's actually a comic from like the 90s that Disney Animation adapted into an animated film. So that's kind of funny, because a lot of people don't really realize that, but this is technically a Marvel property in a lot of ways. But
that's astute observation, OG. I even forgot that for a little bit until you just reminded me just now. It is a Marvel property.
It's a Marvel property, right? And I'm kind of showing right now, Dre, just kind of visual for you. The concept art looks like they're going to turn that bridge into like the San Francisco,
the Golden Gate, with the kind of Japanese archway that we see, maybe like from Epcot, the Japanese pavilion over there.
Yeah, and they got a lot of like really pretty, like kind of like these very Japanese inspired lanterns and like this kind of like this koi fish like kite flying above the land. You saw the art. What's your overall feelings on this? Is it a pro, a con, indifferent? Where are you standing with this new area?
Well, I think I think the cynics out there will definitely kind of poo-poo some more IP being thrust into California Adventure. But honestly, I think in this particular case, I think it really works. I think it's something that's very unique, very original to this amazing setting that, honestly, I mean, when I saw San Francisco in Big Hero 6, I mean, that was a world I definitely wanted to dive into. I mean, it just looked so cool. It looked so unique, so original, and I'm honestly, I'm thrilled that it's coming to Disney California Adventure. This is something that none of us had, had theorized, nothing in the rumor mill about this. Sean Ranking the Mouse, he always says, hey, there's going to be one or two announcements he didn't quite expect. And this is it for California Adventure. And honestly, I'm thrilled. This is a part of California Adventure that was always kind of underwhelming. It was always kind of like, they had kind of spruced it up with the 2012 redo to kind of put more saturation to the color palette, but it was always something that was a little bit lacking when you compared it to the kind of other lands and places featured in California Adventure. And now it'll have its own unique identity. It'll have its own unique character. It'll have its own kind of placemaking. Its transportative quality attached to it. I think it's really, really cool.
Yeah. No, I think this is cool. This is a good move. It kind of takes the 2012 mindset and direction of DCA and kind of adds to that, because the mindset. Well, when Michael Eisner when they built DCA in 2001, it was much more of a literal interpretation of the state, right? Like a Cliff Notes version of the state. And then in 2012, they kind of flipped that and be like, okay, no, it's going to be kind of like California as seen through like this Disney lens. So when you walk into the park, it's like, it's Los Angeles, but it's seen through Walt Disney. And then we're going to have Route 66, but it's as seen through the Disney franchise cars. And it's very much like this kind of like, California with a Disney twist. And this kind of fits into that same kind of mindset in a lot of ways, that 2012 mindset. And I think it'll work just fine. And really, I mean, we are in California, we're a very diverse state. And so not only does it work on the San Francisco kind of references, it also works on the very much, kind of like Asian inspired references. Because, we have a huge Asian population here in California, and it kind of represents that too. It kind of works perfectly, I think, for DCA. So, yeah.
No, and honestly, this has always been kind of it's interesting. It's always been kind of the food court of DCA, right? It's always been kind of like, it could use more. And I think this is a great way to really infuse that more into it. I mean, San Francisco is such a cool aesthetic. It's such a cool thing. It fits right in line with the kind of the California, notion that's inherent in this area. Like you said, it does touch on the kind of like, Asian inspired part of California as well, which is really, really cool to see. It does kind of, make me think, is that Chinese cuisine restaurant there, is that going to be maintained during this whole thing, or are they going to go Japan with that? I'm pretty sure they're going to go Japanese inspired with that, but again, we will see as this concept develops. But honestly, this is a win. I think it's a big win. This is IP done right, and this really kind of completes a portion of DCA that really needed it ever since 2012.
Yeah, now that's interesting. You mentioned the eateries. Yeah, you're right. The Lucky Fortune Cookery, which is very Chinese inspired,
right?
And then the Cochina. I believe it's Cochina Cucamonga, if I'm not mistaken. I hope I'm not massacring that name.
Yes, it is.
Oh, and the food there is freaking fantastic. I love Cochina. I absolutely love that place.
Absolutely. Hopefully, we can see Cochina Cucamonga stay, because that from what I understand, that's some good deeds right there. And with Francis Zocalo becoming that much harder to actually dine there, I'd like to see the Mexican cuisine continue, but I guess we'll see.
We'll see. And I still think that Disney has big plans for DCA with more Latin influence. I think Coco is definitely a possibility down the road and things like that. Maybe even Encanto, stuff like that. So I think that even if they do get rid of Cochina, I think that there will be some other area that will definitely give us that, because Cochina is awesome, man. I love the food there. But
Oh yeah. But before we pivot away,
Sure.
I think from DCA, because I don't know if there was anything left there. I know the hotel in Downtown Disney. We'll get to it, but
Yeah.
one of the things I wanted to kind of highlight was that they did not announce anything for the Hyperion Theater, and that is, I must be honest, kind of disappointing. I think DCA really does need a Hyperion show. I think it really is part of the overall value of that ticket price. I think it improves park hopper sales when you have a show in there. A little bit disappointing not to see anything for the Hyperion.
Yeah, I talked to George this morning, and we were kind of talking about that on the phone. And like Marvel's really been pushing, like I know with their Marvel panel, they've been pushing like this the musical, the Steve Rogers musical, right? And I think they showed it at Comic-Con, and they kind of did it again here at D23, this whole musical kind of thing. And we were kind of joking, but like kind of serious, like what if they brought that to the Hyperion, right? Because it's kind of like that perfect segue between like, like this kind of like this very much like Broadway stage show, but it's like kind of like the perfect transition into like Avengers Campus and what have you. And nothing. Absolutely nothing. So that's you're right. That is a little concerning because that's a big piece of property there. And I don't know. I hope it's not kind of like just sitting there like they're just waiting to figure out what they're gonna put there and eventually bulldoze it. Cause I agree with you, Dre. I do like the idea of having some kind of like entertainment offerings at the resort. It's kind of a dying art at Disneyland Resort. And if they get rid of that theater, that's it,
So you might hear some additional background noise because it's actually raining as we're driving there, and the what is it? The drops of water here they're pretty loud. They're pretty loud. The rain here is pretty loud. So if I become more unintelligible as we get on here, I do apologize, good sir. But I agree with you. I think the Hyperion is definitely needed. I think it's absolutely something that is very important to the overall, let's say, entertainment mix, not just at DCA, but at Disneyland Resort. I mean, honestly, when you see a really great Broadway quality in the Hyperion, it changes your whole kind of outlook on entertainment and your visit to the Disneyland Resort. So, like I said, it was kind of disappointing to see that. I think the Marvel idea is interesting. Would I go with the kind of Steve Rogers on Broadway idea of it? I'm not sure about that. I'm a little bit more hesitant on that. But they need something, and if that is what it happens to be, well, it's better than nothing. So we'll see. I'm sure it's coming. Josh C. Morrow did allude to more entertainment being featured at the parks in general. So we'll see.
Yeah. And just want to let you know that that's actually not rain. What you're seeing is actually Chapek's tears for all the money he has to spend now in the parks after you promised all this stuff.
Oh, there's a lot of tears. There's a lot of rain here. So, yeah, I mean, he's crying up a storm here. There's going to be some dollar bills.
Yeah.
There's going to be some ducats dropped here.
Chapek's like, oh, man, let me get out my checkbook. Man, dang, you kids are crazy. So we're going to move on to the other side of the Esplanade to Disneyland, which surprisingly didn't get a whole lot, which is kind of weird to me because I was really expecting it. I was really expecting Disneyland to get a lot more. We thought Tomorrowland, People Mover, didn't happen. Even the Treehouse. I mean, it was just crazy that they didn't even give us anything on the Treehouse. None of that. I mean, really, the only thing that I can really report on for Disneyland proper is the new 100th anniversary of the Walt Disney Company's firework spectacular that will be at Disneyland called Wondrous Journeys. And this is courtesy of WDWNT. And it says here, a little brief description, basically to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the Walt Disney Company, a new fireworks spectacular called Wondrous Journeys will debut at Disneyland Park next year. Wondrous Journeys will replace Disneyland Forever, which has been running since May of 2015. The show will include a new song entitled It's Wondrous. And they do show an image here of some projected mapping with some very whimsical, fanciful kind of artwork projected on the castle. Some of the trees look very reminiscent of like some of you see like in Sleeping Beauty, which is very fitting for the castle that we have. Some beautiful butterflies. So basically it'll pay homage to the Walt Disney Company overall. What are your thoughts about this kind of new fireworks show for the 100th?
Well, I don't know if you got to see it, OG, but they actually played the song that is going to be featured there live for the audience at this Disney Parks panel. And I got to be honest, man, I mean, it's got the feels. Now, it was a more of a folksy version of it. I think the arrangement that they're ultimately going to be going for in the actual show when it premieres is going to be a bigger arrangement, you know, kind of those sweeping scores that we're all kind of familiar with. But honestly, even the folksy kind of version of it was absolutely spectacular. I mean, I was really, really impressed. You know, these kind of unique songs for these shows, they can very much be hit and miss, you know?
Yeah.
I don't think anybody was really kind of captivated in the same for Enchantment and that song that was featured. Man, it was really, really strong, really, really good. I am very excited for this, absolutely for sure.
Yeah, I did. I actually, honestly, I didn't get to hear that. I will definitely check that out after the show. I'm very curious about that. That makes all the difference in the world with these fireworks shows. If the music's good, it hits different. You know what I'm saying? It definitely hits different. And that's like the thing with Happily Ever After over in Florida, which is another thing that we'll talk about because that's coming back. It's coming back. But
coming back. It's coming back.
It is coming back. They heard you. They heard you, fandom, and they're bringing it back. But like that's the thing, though. The music makes all the difference. It really, really does. So that's encouraging. I will definitely listen to that after our show. I'm very, very curious.
Please do, because it's very good. Also, too, they announced World of Color 1 as well for DCA as part of this 100-year anniversary. And honestly, you know, that looks good too. I know a lot of people, you know, I think, look, I'm a huge World of Color fan. I love the original, but I think it is kind of time to kind of maybe look at something new, especially with the kind of one. There are whole segments of that show that were built on effects that aren't featured there anymore. I think it is time to look at a new show, and this is a great way to bring it.
Yeah, they do. They need to bring it. And World of Color has always been kind of cool to me because it's always kind of been this ever evolving kind of show. We saw it with great things like, and for all you kids out there, you might not be old enough to remember this, but the Tron Core tag at the end. And they've always, from the beginning, Disney has always been kind of changing, evolving, tweaking World of Color. And I like that about that show, that it's constantly kind of in flux. So this new version of it, to kind of represent the 100 years of the company and to bring in some franchises that, you know, are newer and a little bit more representative of like the youth today. I'm all for it. You know, as long as they get someone in there that can really make this thing work and really flow nicely, I think it'll be great. We got some great music recently from like movies like Coco, from Encanto, you know, even like, you know, from, now it's been a while. It's been like, what, like 10 or 12 years, but even like Tangled and stuff. I just want to see some of these newer classics kind of brought in there. I know Tangled is represented in the show now, but maybe on a bigger scale in this new show, something like that. There's a lot of potential there. Absolutely a lot of potential. So we'll see.
There's a lot of potential, I think, for both shows. And like you said, as long as it's a good crew working on it, hopefully not the, what is it? Oh God, I can't even think of the name now. Walt Disney World's 50th anniversary. Enchantment. Sorry, I thought it was that, but I wasn't quite sure because let's be honest here, it's not exactly memorable. But you know, as long as it's not the Enchantment crew, I think we'll be in good hands. I've been really liking the new fireworks shows that they've been debuting around the world. You know, we just had Momentous at Hong Kong, and that was pretty good. I do have high hopes for this. The music sounds great, and that's half the battle right there for sure.
100%. Now we're going to take a trip to the East Coast. We're going to go to Orlando, Florida. We're going to Orlando, Florida. Now, this is where I think it's going to get a little interesting because we talked a little bit on the phone before this, and this is very fascinating because I think you brought up a great point on the phone. And I'm not going to step on it. I'm going to let you kind of make your case and kind of like,
Cool.
But like I'm going to kind of basically set the table, and then I'll go to you. So apparently, and I'm showing the concept art right now for this. It says breaking themed lands in development for Coco and Kanto Disney villains at Magic Kingdom, possibly. And this is kind of goes to your point, possibly replacing Rivers of America. And a little brief description here. It says a new land or lands are under development for Beyond Big Thunder Mountain Railroad in Frontierland at Magic Kingdom. The possible land would include Coco, Encanto, and Disney villains. That's interesting. It says here that plans are in early development, but guests could encounter Casita and ride on a I hate mispronouncing stuff. Alabrije. Concept art implies this would also replace Rivers of America and Tom Sawyer Island. Okay, so this is interesting. So it seems like, at least from this concept art, that this area beyond Big Thunder Mountain Railroad over at Magic Kingdom would kind of have like this more kind of Latin inspired area. Now you have thoughts on this. I'm gonna let you take the podium and kind of run with it right now.
I'm a little honestly, I'm a little mixed, but I'm a little perturbed, if anything, because it's like, we just got off the phone a couple days ago about how Disney just reveals too much. They just reveal too much. They get people locked into concept artwork that doesn't necessarily reflect the final product. They kind of hype up stuff and get expectations in kind of a false place. And then, people kind of go down this line, and unfortunately, it doesn't necessarily pan out all the time. And we were just juxtaposing the style with Universal and how they don't give any concept artwork for anything up until about the moment it opens, basically. I think, leading up to like the last month of the opening of Velocicoaster, I think they were still going on that it was going to be a churro stand for example, right? I mean, they just don't reveal anything. And so this was a very kind of different approach to an announcement-ish, because it's basically blue sky. This is basically telling you, hey, this is what could happen. And with as the language proceeds with this Parks panel presentation, it's always like, hey, imagine if, or could you think of this? Could you imagine if we did this? Could you see yourself walking here doing this? And they were hyping up, Encanto and Coco, and for Disney's Animal Kingdom, they were doing Zootopia and Moana and stuff like this. And then you had kind of a villain's land idea or concept that really got a lot of people enthused in the crowd. I mean, the loudest cheers I have heard for any panel this Expo came from that. So that got great reception. But it was just like, why would you necessarily do this? I mean, this is a very kind of odd thing. And as I was going over my notes, for the show we're recording now, I was kind of awestruck at how little Walt Disney World actually got in terms of big announcements versus Disneyland. And I think that's what this was about. It was, we haven't forgotten about Walt Disney World. We're still working on it. However, while we don't have announcements now, this is what we have to show you, kind of thing. And it's just a very kind of weird thing. Now, I will had a very much an optimistic take on it. I mean, he really does kind of believe that I will agree with him. I think it will take some form or another that these, in terms of these things materializing. I think they absolutely will.
Uh-oh. I think I might have lost you, brother. Okay. I think we lost Vash, but he might. Oh, there he is. Oh, we lost you for a second, Dre.
However, Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. We lost you for a little bit. You said that I think you said George was optimistic about this and he thinks it'll come about.
Yeah.
Go on from there because we lost you.
So, apologize about that. Hey, I'm traveling through mountains right now.
No problem.
More bad. But George was actually very optimistic about this. He was actually saying how this gave him a lot of hope for the future, and I do agree with him. I'm a little bit more hesitant about maybe the ultimate form it'll take. I don't necessarily think it'll take the form that we're seeing discussed today. However, he was very bullish. He was saying, "Hey, look, I think these things will come to fruition." And he did agree with me that, it might not take the form that we're hearing right now, but it'll ultimately come. And I would concepts at least to fruition, and others might take a different form than we might expect. But it does give Walt Disney World fans, it does give them hope for sure. And for a resort that has been, let's say, passed over when it comes to big, ambitious projects like this for a little while now, it was very, it definitely lit a fire under my kind of theme park fandom to see that these concepts were being talked about, and we're just going to have to see what form they ultimately take at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, 100%. I like the idea of a Latin themed land in Magic Kingdom. I think that's actually kind of a cool concept for a land.
Yeah,
I really dig that. Obviously, the Disney villains thing is a great concept. I mean, they've been tossing that idea around for even full-fledged theme parks forever. That's a fantastic idea.
Absolutely.
But we were talking on the phone.
And George has been. Oh, go ahead.
Well, no, I was just saying we were talking on the phone though, and it does feel very like what if and like blue sky and like maybe we'll see and like can you imagine? And we were kind of talking on the phone before we went on the air about how like what if this is sort of the ace in the pocket for Disney if Epic Universe kind of takes off. Maybe these are concepts that they're kind of throwing around if they need to bring those out. So that's why there's no real like firm kind of plan, firm kind of promise. It's kind of based on like, okay, well, if Epic Universe takes off, we have a couple things here we can trot out if we need to. Is that a possibility, you think? That some of that might be going on here? Oh, I think we lost Drake.
That was.
Oh, there you go.
Oh.
Okay, go ahead, sir. You broke up for a second. What was that?
Oh, sorry about that. I think that's absolutely a possibility. I mean, we heard about Beastly Kingdom, right, being tossed around as an idea or concept around the time that Islands of Adventure was taking off the ground. So I think Imagineering, I think they do this. I think it's like, hey, look, listen, if we need to bust something out in order to react to our competition or so forth, or we need to, stave off cannibalization or whatever, we have products in the can that we can go ahead and debut. I do think that this is very consistent with that. I do think this is part of that for sure. So it's a very astute observation made by George and UOG on that. Just great work on that. Also, too, we got to give our buddy George a little bit more of a shout out in terms of his villains concept. I mean, he was like, hey, it could work in Magic Kingdom. It could work, here. And hey, we might be seeing a take on that, which is very, very cool. Like you said, they've been working on that for forever. Very nice juxtaposition when comparing it to monsters over there at the universe. I mean, what can you provide for people than a villain land in Magic Kingdom? I think it's great.
I agree with you. I think it's a great juxtaposition to kind of react to Universal and their stuff. We've seen Disney have very what's the word for it? Disney's been very successful here in California with like their kind of Halloween villain stuff at DCA. You can incorporate a lot of that in just any new villain land at Magic Kingdom, and you can really do amazing things, I think, over there if they were to go that route. And judging from the crowd response, like what you guys were saying, because I didn't watch it live, but the crowd response that you guys are referring to when they announced the villain stuff, it was like crazy. Believe me, Disney notices that stuff, and I'm sure that's kind of like, you know, the front burner right now. Like, okay, you know what? They responded the most passionately for that villains thing. That's our go-to. That's going to be the thing we kind of lean on if we need it. So yeah, these are very blue sky. These are very like, hey, you know, we'll pull them out if we need to. I wouldn't necessarily hold breath in terms of like happening anytime soon. But if Epic Universe takes off and Disney needs something, I think they're going to go that route. And probably the villains thing will probably be the first thing they pull out, to be quite honest.
Yeah. No, honestly, I think the villains idea, I mean, it just got a huge reaction. Now, I understand it's D23, you know, that's not necessarily general audience, but honestly, I mean, look at how much they've monetized the villains in terms of Oogie Boogie Ben or Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party. I mean, it really has become a successful kind of franchise for them. Also, too, I think it's worth noting, they had Jennifer Lee out with this Imagineer going over these concepts. And I think that that really shows, I think, a new kind of closer relationship between animation or a kind of Disney studio and Walt Disney Imagineering in a way that maybe we hadn't seen before. I think that's very noteworthy and interesting. Also, too, if people are thinking that they're not going to do IP, you know, going forward, or maybe they have original concepts, you know, in their back pocket, looks like they're going to stay there because it was very IP focused and it got a huge crowd reaction, even from a populace who is, I think, a little bit more open to original concepts than the general public.
No, 100%, Dre. The IP thing is definitely a trend for sure. I mean, it's definitely a trend the industry is going in right now. Universal's real big on it. Disney's real big on it. And that trend might eventually fall off, no doubt. But right now and in the foreseeable future, that train is full steam ahead. And Bob Chapek is all about that. You know, I mean, he's talking about like Disney Plus and how they're gonna kind of make it more interactive in terms of like, you know, how you can. It's not just a platform to watch things. You can kind of get involved in like this metaverse or shopping with. They're all about this IP and this brand synergy, and they want the parks to be part of that synergy machine, as JPEG calls it. So that IP thing is not going anywhere, you know. And like we even talked about, like with DCA, I mean, all these areas like the Pacific Wharf that previously had no IP is getting an IP now. I wouldn't be surprised. It pains me to say it because I really love Grizzly Peak and that whole area, but I wouldn't be surprised if eventually they look to that area and add an IP to that to some degree. You know, I think that's really the direction of Disney. That's where they want to head. They want to really synergize all this stuff, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. You can do that in a good way. Look, one of the best attractions that was ever built at really any Disney park is the Indiana Jones Adventure. Well, that's an IP. I mean, Rise of the Resistance, that's an IP. Raider Springs, that's an IP. And then you go to attractions like the Rocket Rods, which is not an IP and it's total dog shit, right? So it just depends on the execution. So it doesn't necessarily mean bad if it's an IP. It's just the execution. But yeah, they're not giving up on that IP. They're not giving up on that IP anytime soon.
It is absolutely execution. It's absolutely, I mean, honestly, the quality of the IP hardly matters sometimes. I mean, really, the most, the best example of that actually coming to fruition is Night Before Christmas. That did not make much money at the box office. It was a cult classic, and it took some Imagineers to go, or Steve Davis in particular, to go, hey, maybe we could do something on that for as an overlay for the Haunted Mansion. Sure enough, it's one of those things when this thing debuts for Halloween time each year. When you look at IP-based attractions, I mean, the executives love it. Bob Iger loves it because, I mean, think about the zeitgeist. Think about when people have conversations in their daily lives and, somebody says, oh, they're doing a new Encanto attraction. And, that gets the hype. They get the kind of, fervor building there for this attraction. You sell vacation packages very easily when people kind of know the theme of this attraction. The merchandise opportunities, become that much more effortless and so forth. I mean, there's just so many kind of benefits for the executives on that angle. But then even when you look at Imagineering, it's a shortcut to an emotional story. because these characters are already known, their stories are already known, and if you can kind of bring that emotion out in the form of an attraction, it just makes it that much easier to do so. I mean, look at Snow White. When Snow White made its debut, from its refurb over the events of 2020 and beyond, it was a very emotional attraction in a way that it had never quite been before to that degree, and that's only possible using an IP on that level.
Right.
So again, I understand people, they want their mind seeing, more down the line, but the best response I ever have to that is, hey, if you've ever armed or Imagineered, I'm sure you've talked about how you can bring Mary Poppins to life in the form of an attraction, or Lion King, or so forth. So even the armchair Imagineers who would like original attractions go to the IP first. So, do we expect Disney to be any different? No. And like I said, there are benefits to doing so.
100%. 100%. Now we're going to dip into like the hotels a little bit, because I thought this was interesting. With the Paradise Pier Hotel officially becoming the Pixar Place Hotel. Okay. And this is fascinating to me because this is like the worst kept secret ever. Like, we knew for years this was going to eventually become Pixar. Now, have you seen, okay, well, you've seen this, right? The artwork and all that good stuff for this Pixar Place Hotel?
I have. Yeah. So they basically showed the lobby, and then they showed a kind of splash pad area that they're building based on Finding Nemo, it looks like.
Correct.
Honestly, I mean, I'm not, look, the problem is you're starting from a very, very crummy foundation, to put it mildly. I mean, the Paradise Pier Hotel, or now the Pixar Place Hotel, when it originally was built, it wasn't a Disney property. They didn't actually build this. It was, it was bought, it was inherited. Every single iteration that we've seen on this, it just, you still have that crummy foundation from which you're building stuff on. Right. And it's always going to be that. And this does really no different. I'm not super optimistic about this. I'm sorry to break it to everybody. No,
I agree with you. It feels very placemaker to me. The interesting thing to me, though, with this whole hotel retheme, okay, they went with Pixar. That's great. But what's interesting, though, is that they didn't go with Pixar Pier Hotel. And that's interesting to me, not because of the hotel itself, but like, is that indicative of like where they perceive Pixar Pier's future? Because like, why wouldn't, if you felt Pixar Pier was a mainstay, right? If you felt as an executive, Pixar Pier was something like, you know what, we're keeping that. That's gold right there. You would want to name your hotel based on that, because it's going to be, that land will be there forever. The fact that they didn't call it Pixar Pier and they went with Pixar Place Hotel, a little suspicious to me. Am I reading too much into it?
Well, it's when you think about it, it is kind of a place where Pixar lives, and maybe that's not necessarily reflective of the IP featured in Pixar Pier. So I think they wanted a much more general and broad theme in order to widen out the amount of IP that they can actually pull from and actually incorporate in this hotel. Also, too, I mean, Disneyland Forward, we haven't heard anything about it recently, and, we will probably have a view on that where we think that kind of is. I think there's some optimism there. But if, in fact, that does go forward, and Pixar Pier does kind of broaden out into this new area around the Pixar hotel, the Pixar Place Hotel, well, that could incorporate more Pixar into those areas, in which, I think they're kind of setting themselves up to where this hotel will have a home within whatever they have for that area going forward. So, I wouldn't say you're not necessarily off, but I think they're maybe thinking beyond the bounds of Pixar Pier, and that's what the name reflects.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's a great point, because with this whole Disneyland Forward concept, the area around this hotel in particular would become theme park expansion. So maybe you don't want to box yourself into a Pixar Pier when this area might be Pixar still. Theme park around it, will be Pixar, but it won't necessarily be the pier. So that's a good point. It's maybe a very forward kind of thinking. Fascinating, dude. Fascinating. Now, it's interesting, not to kind of go across the way a little bit to Downtown Disney. We didn't really get a whole lot of news on Downtown Disney, did we? I thought we would get a whole lot more than we did.
I thought so too. But, I think we got, what is it? I think 12 new restaurant shops or whatever, or, reimagined concepts or what. I can't remember quite the language he used, but I guess there is going to be about a dozen, restaurant shops, whatever, featured in this kind of area. They did make a point of and I cannot remember the name of it.
Portos?
Portos, yes, but also the Chinese cuisine. But they're going to have I cannot remember the name of the proprietor. I really do apologize. So, but they did release some concept artwork for that eatery, and it looks great. Honestly, it looks very fantastic. Apparently, this thing gets lines around the block wherever it opens up, so that's going to be a great addition to Downtown Disney. But also, like you mentioned earlier, Portos. I mean, this is a kind of a bakery. I guess they brand themselves as a bakery, but so much more. It's just this place is really something special. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, there's a Portos to be found in Buena Park right now, across from Knott's Berry Farm, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, there might be. I'm not familiar with Buena Park. I know there's one. I'm more like familiar with the Valley. So there's one in Burbank, which is very successful, huge lines every time, and one in Northridge, which is also very successul. But wherever they put one of these, they usually do very well. So it doesn't shock me that Disney decided to reach out.
I think they won to California Staple as part of this.
Yeah.
So just similar to like Gideon's in Florida, right? Where you have this kind of Floridian staple, and you can incorporate it into Downtown Disney. It gives that kind of brand new, a whole new association, right? A new lease on life, if you were. And honestly, I mean, I believe I have frequented a Portos, prior. A few years ago, I remember visiting one, and I mean the food and everything was spectacular. I mean, it was really, really kind of high quality, expensive, but you can expect that. But honestly, I mean, this is a big win. It's a big win for Downtown Disney, big win for Disneyland Resort. I think this is a wonderful offering that they've included here, and compliments to Disney for doing that.
Yeah, no, 100%. Now, there's a lot of announcements with this D23 Expo, so I don't think we'll get to all of them, but I did want to touch upon this one because we talked about this so many times, which is Mando and Grogu coming to Galaxy's Edge. It says breaking the Mandalorian and Grogu meet and greet to debut at Disneyland in November. So now we got this announcement a while back. I remember we were talking about this a while back, but we never knew when. And it's kind of interesting. I don't know if you saw the imagery, but it's basically Mando with a little pouch, and Grogu kind of sits in the pouch. And that's an interesting kind of way to approach this, because I've always assumed that Grogu would kind of sort of be in like his little crib that kind of floats around or something like that. But no, he's gonna be kind of like, hitching a ride with Mando, which is actually a clever way to kind of kill two birds with one stone, so to speak. You get both Mando and Grogu all at once.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I know 100%. This is actually the way it's the way, right? This is actually the form that I imagined in my head when I thought of Mando and Grogu in Galaxy's Edge. I thought it was going to be a Mando walking around with kind of a satchel and Grogu kind of sticking out. I believe I actually provided this imagery to the viewers in a previous show where we were speculating on the future of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge and what could be incorporated to include it. I believe I mentioned this specifically, but Jon Favreau was actually out there to help announce this thing. And, he actually went into some detail about how they worked for month, even before the events of 2020, on incorporating, Mandalorian and Grogu into Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. And that's consistent with the rumors that we've heard about a kind of a Mando-verse being center stage in Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. Again, this is not going to happen at Walt Disney World, which is, I can hear the Be Fair to Florida guys right now, chiming in right now, I believe. Do apologize, guys, but looks like we're going to get it first. But I was stunned about John Favreau's comments about how it really took some time to get this incorporated into the parks. I guess they really worked with the costume department to get every single detail translated, accurately into the parks kind of domain. And the Grogu, it's a little audio animatronic. It is really kind of a cool concept there. I believe they're going to have maybe a guy controlling it on the side, I mean, this is a very high quality character inclusion, I guess, or pseudo meet and greets that we've seen featured here, and I cannot wait. I think it'll live up to the hype. I think it will live up to the expectation because it looks pretty cool. I must admit.
No, it does. Yeah. And this kind of goes to like the Hulk thing over Avengers Campus. The photo pass for this is going to be insane. I mean, way beyond even the Hulk thing. I mean, Grogu is like just a mint, a little mint. He is going to create so much buzz. People are going to want to take selfie after selfie after selfie with this little guy. It's absolutely bonkers. Absolutely bonkers. Now, I do think a little bit of the issue with Florida, you did touch upon that, which I think is fascinating, how Florida isn't getting this. I think a big problem with the Florida situation right now is that they have a $6,000 a night or whatever hotel, right? Or cruise, galactic cruise.
Yep.
That whole situation, I think that they have that in their back pocket to monetize. So they're not going to give you this kind of cool stuff for free. Do you think they're going to? Nah, they're going to give it to you in the Star Cruiser when they can charge you, several grand to experience it. We don't have that here in Anaheim, so they can't do that.
Rumor is, OG, that they will be featuring Grogu and Mandalorian in Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser, but not necessarily in the land itself. Apparently, they have, for the first time since its debut, they've had a couple of underbookings, let's say. And there's definitely a kind of a dwindling demand for this Star Cruiser experience. And I think one of the ways they want to kind of shore up those reservations, let's say, and get people to come back is through the inclusion of Mandalorian and Grogu. So that's why. If the folks don't necessarily like what's going on in Florida, well, unfortunately, Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser plays a big part in that.
No, 100%, 100%. Now, to kind of wrap up, I kind of wanted to close out with just kind of any miscellaneous thoughts in terms of like the parks panel, kind of like, like anything that we didn't touch upon that you kind of want to bring up, anything like that before we close it out.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'll go ahead and I'll just kind of I'll go balls to the wall, as George would say, right? I'll kind of give you rapid fire my thoughts. Oh, go ahead, OG.
Oh, well, you know what? If you say balls to the wall, we got to do this. I'm actually gonna show the ball to the wall alert, and we're gonna.
There you go.
You got to do it for George. We miss George greatly. He's at D23 Expo, having the time of his life. But we miss you, brother. But I just had to do that for George. But go ahead, sir.
Absolutely, and hopefully you guys can hear me a little bit clearer. We got some clear weather, so that's hopefully I was intelligible through that car ride right there.
You sound good now. You sound
good. Good. I will say, again, I am unbelievably surprised that they did not have anything on the what is it, the Treehouse? I mean, I would have sworn Kim Irvine would have been up there piping it all about it, and nothing. This is we're now in September. This is now a year that this attraction has been down, and we have heard nothing in terms of what this is going to be. We've heard some rumors. We've heard maybe Seas based, right? We've heard the Sea Society base. We've heard Swiss and Robinson Treehouse. We've heard Encanto, but we did not hear anything regarding this thing at D23 Expo. I'm honestly blown away. I did not expect that. As far as Splash Mountain goes, and Tiana's Bayou Adventure, I mean, honestly, I'm severely disappointed. And it's so funny because George, before this thing ever kicked off, it was like, wouldn't it be something if they had at the D23 Parks panel, if they had a couple of these Imagineers come out and they just kind of had a roundtable type discussion type format for this. And essentially that is what we got. And it is so bizarre. All we got was an exterior model and, I should preface by saying that, yes, there's going to be a new story. We heard of who will actually be featured in the attraction in terms of voice talent. No Dr. Facilier, no Jim Cummings doing the part of Ray. So that is absolutely accurate. My speculation on that is accurate. And based on what we've been hearing and so forth, not going to get the events of the movie. This is going to be a completely new story, as they brought up today. As far as what this story entails in terms of visuals, we have nothing. But we did get Mist. We got a new Mist effect apparently that they're going on about, saying that this is revolutionary or whatever. And it's like, well, we've had Mist in attractions before. And my experience with Mist in attractions, it doesn't last for long. So when I hear, them talking about Mist, it's like, are you serious? That's it? And I guess, now OG didn't see it, but to describe it for the audience here, they had this kind of imagery attached to this Mist concept, and basically what it was a black room with one shining light up in the kind of top edge of the frame, shining down into this kind of fog or mist that they had going on, and this light kind of kaleidoscoped through colors. Quite rapidly. It reminded me almost of like the effect that used to be on Space Mountain back in the day when you were going up that kind of second lift hill there. That's what it reminded me of. I mean, it was laughable. It was just like, are you serious? We're supposed to take this attraction seriously. This is replacing something that is so beloved and that has so much controversy. And this is what you bring out? I mean, it's meme worthy. It's laughable. I think George even commented saying that this was like a high school production almost, in terms of its presentation and format. I mean, I was quite surprised. I must be honest with you. I thought we were going to get something, especially because it makes its debut in like 2024. I thought for sure that we would get something in terms of, art or interior concept or, maybe some more details on the story. And we really didn't hear it. The bulk of the information provided at, the unveiling of the model, that's basically what we got. And we didn't even get Tiana's Palace. Apparently this restaurant's coming in and we have no idea where it's going to be. We have no idea what form it's going to take. And I don't know, OG. I'm
weird.
I'm shocked. I'm surprised.
It's weird. I don't know if they're saving it for some other event. I really thought when they brought out the model, for the expo, I thought, okay, this is going to be the bulk of the conversation at the parks panel was going to be the Tiana Bayou Adventure and Toontown, because those are the two models that they displayed from day one. And we didn't really hear much about any of either of those things at the park panel. I mean, they gave us a little bit of Runaway Railway here. We didn't dive into that. I mean, but yeah, they gave us a little bit, but not much. And we got really next to nothing about Tiana's. And I'm like, wait a minute. Like, what's going on? Like, this is weird. And that's the thing. I can't even really have, like, I want to have an opinion on this attraction. I don't really have anything to go on. And it's kind of frustrating. I'm like, okay, like, can you give us at least the Tiana animatronic? Can you give us that? Can you give us at least maybe 2 or 3 pieces of concept art for various show scenes? Give us that.
Yeah.
Nothing. I don't understand. They're not giving us anything in regards to any of it. It's really, really strange. Like, the only thing I can think of is like what you're saying is they don't even know. I don't know, but it seems late in the game now not to know. So that's another thing.
I think they're coming up with this idea on the seat of their pants. Honestly, I think they're kind of figuring it out as they go along here. I think that some of these concepts are rushed. Some of these things are not well thought out. Andy Castro, who does photography for Mice Chat.
Yep.
And he has commented on these kind of things before, famously through his 21 Royal Street Twitter account. He was kind of going through this and just saying, hey, look, Imagineering, sometimes they tie themselves up into these knots. They tie themselves up and they kind of become beholden on some of this kind of these kind of unorthodox concepts or ideas, and now they have to kind of go through these see these through to fruition, and the result is just it's not a great creative process, to be honest with you.
You know what?
I mean, he said it.
Not to interrupt you, but let's go ahead and share. I do have his tweet, and I want to bring this up.
Oh, please do.
I think that you. I'm glad you brought this up because I think that Andy's tweet is actually pretty brilliant. This is.
Yeah.
I'm showing it now on the screen because this has to be brought up.
And please do, and please read it if you could.
I am. I'm going to read it, and then we'll talk about it because we just have to. Because the way he articulates this is so spot on, freaking perfect. So this is from 21. It is. It's so perfect. So 21 Royal Street on Twitter. Andy says here the real problem is really that the mountain is supposed to be in New Orleans, and but you think the premier theme park design group in the world could come up with a better way to make it work. He goes on to say, turning a salt mine into a food co-op and adding a water tower, the perfect example that Walt Disney Imagineering insane story knots they insist on tying themselves into simply do not work. It's a broken design process. And then he concludes here saying, people want an enjoyable ride with the great characters from the movie, Ashton. Right? Ashton wants that. Yeah. We know that. We had her on the other day, and she agrees. She wants the little firefly. She wants the great characters. But Andy goes on to say they don't need a convoluted backstory about Tiana's business life post-movie. Nobody cares. It would be a boring movie to see Tiana opening a co-op in the salt mine. Why is this the basis of your ride? And Andy is 100% right. Look, dude. This guy hit the nail on the head. He hit the nail on the head so fucking hard it's not even funny. Like that is kind of the case. And not even with this in particular. Like I've been saying this for a long time where Imagineering is like right now, like current Imagineering, they're very bogged down into like this like story driven thing, like this story obsession where everything has to be like this real intricate storyline. And some of the best attractions at these parks are the attractions that are not really story driven. They're more experience driven, right? So you have a thing like Space Mountain, which is basically you're basically in a rocket jet in outer space. There's not a whole lot of backstory. Big Thunder, I know there's a backstory that it's haunted. No one fucking knows about that. I mean, that might be the official backstory, but let's be honest. It's a train going through the Southwest, and that's about it, you know?
Absolutely.
You know, you look at things even like, I don't know, Matterhorn. It's just you're in a bobsled in a mountain. Like there's not a whole lot to it. And that's kind of the beauty of it. The simplicity is really king, and the simplicity makes it really work. Once you start injecting these really complicated storylines about a salt mine, food co-op, water tower thing, entrepreneurial businesswoman, you kind of get really bogged down, you know? And look, here's the thing. Every attraction has some sort of backstory to it. Toontown has a huge backstory.
Absolutely.
Toontown has this elaborate backstory about how Walt Disney wanted a place for Toons, and Toontown has always been there, and he built Disneyland around Toontown. No one knows
Yeah.
that. I'm just old.
Yeah.
I'm over 40 years old, so I remember that backstory. But most people don't understand. Most people don't even remember that. You know. So there is a possibility with this Tiana ride. There's this elaborate backstory on paper, but when you get in the ride, it's more of a generalized kind of experience. I'm hoping for that. But Andy Castro hits the nail on the head with this. This is definitely a problem with Imagineering. This is definitely an issue. We'll see what happens. But Dre, go on. I mean, what are your thoughts on this? Andy, absolutely brilliant tweet. Absolutely brilliant.
A brilliant series of tweets, honestly, because it kind of encapsulated what I think a lot of people have been saying in the span of 3 tweets, and that's extremely impressive. I didn't even get that far. It took me 15 minutes to get that far. You know, I mean, but it's true. I mean, OG, you make a good point. I mean, that some of the best rides are experiential. You know, does Matterhorn need a story? No, you're just going up into this kind of Swiss mountain, and you're being chased by an abominable snowman. Yeah, everybody kind of gets it. You know, it's there's really no attraction that I can think of that, you know, that people are clamoring for a storyline or backdrop or whatever to get more out of it, or to make it a more enjoyable experience outside of maybe Haunted Mansion. I think Haunted Mansion is one of those things that kind of that really what is it? It's I think people are looking for a narrative there, and but still it's very impressionistic, right? It's very kind of experiential. It's kind of what you take out of it, and that interpretation that's different, but, you know, between all guests, that makes it kind of a fun thing. I think it works in Disneyland Paris, obviously, but it doesn't necessarily need it, you know. And when I see this kind of convoluted stuff, I mean, Jungle Cruise was like the most notable example recently, where it's just when they reimagined that attraction, and not you know, discounting the reimagining. I actually thought it was actually done quite well, but these elaborate backstories that they applied to, you know, notable characters in the attraction, in the queue, and so forth. I mean, it was just too much. There were so many Disney Parks blog, you know, posts about it. I eventually just tuned them out, because it's just they're needlessly complicated. They're needlessly, you know, word salad almost. I mean, it's just like, oh my gosh, you know, some writer got paid for this, and you know, God bless that man or woman or anybody who they were. But it's just I don't care. I don't care. And this is a theme park fan. You know, this is a theme park. You know, I like to think of myself as kind of a pseudo historian almost, or this kind of knowledge base that you know, I like to absorb, and I like to relate to any audience who will hear me. And even I was like, you know what, I'm out. That just tells you they just go too far sometimes. And with this, you know, Tiana by Bayou Adventure, I mean, this is the best reflection of this. It's just too convoluted. It's too complicated. It's, you know, it's this kind of story like nobody really cares about. People cared about, and this is kind of the risk with IP, right? If you don't execute it firmly and don't capitalize on this IP in the way that people imagine, people can get disappointed, right? Mm-hmm. This was an original attraction. We'll be talking about this in a different way, but this IP, people, I think, really wanted this to be like a Fantasyland style attraction, right, where you go through specific events in the movie and you realize those in a 3-dimensional space. That is not what we're getting. And yet people, I think, are going to hear Princess and the Frog attraction or Tiana's Bayou Adventure and get really hyped for something that just doesn't exist.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. There's definitely a divide between what is expected and what we're going to get. And we saw, and I keep bringing it up because it really does bear repeating. When we did that show with Ashton, that was a perfect example of that. She was all about that attraction. She was like, well, you know, I like Splash Mountain, but I really like Princess and the Frog. I think it's a better IP than Song of the South, and I'm excited for it. And she was all about it. She's very gung-ho. Yeah. But then when you told her, okay, but what if I told you it's not based on the movie? Okay, what if I told you it's based on the events after the movie? What if I told you she's not going to be in her princess gown and there's no Firefly and there's no this and that? And then her whole attitude towards the attraction changed. And look, I mean, and you could see it. And video is in The video is just from last Sunday. So check it out. If you're everyone at home watching, check it out. It's the video about Harry Potter.
It's worth it. It is absolutely worth watching because it's this kind of visual representation of what we're talking about.
Right.
Experience in real time right in front of you. Like you said, it was about Harry Potter, and honestly, it's a great video just on its own.
Yeah.
But this particular moment, I mean, it is really to see a reaction like that in right in front of us. It was profound, honestly.
Yeah,
profound.
No, it was. I mean, you saw it in her face. She was like, "Oh man, this changes kind of my whole perception of it," And I think that might be the case for a lot of people. So that's a problem for Disney. Now, that doesn't mean they can't turn it around. Doesn't mean that this version won't be amazing. We still don't know anything, so it's really hard to even make an opinion. A real honest, like they're not. That's a frustrating thing. This is the thing that's really frustrating me about this whole Tiana thing. It's like, I want to be able to say, I love this idea or I hate this idea, or at least give some sort of viewpoint on it. I can't do any of that because they don't give us anything. It's like they gave us a model yesterday that, like you astutely pointed out, was not even like a model they created for Tiana. It was an old model because they still have Brer Rabbit logs. So it wasn't even like... It was kind of like a model they kind of retrofitted to kind of give you some idea. But I think that there's a lot in there that isn't 100% accurate, which is frustrating in and of itself because it's the little bit that we have, and even that isn't really accurate. And then we thought, okay, well, you know what? That's fine. But tomorrow, we're going to get all the info. We're going to get all the detail. We're going to get animatronics. We're going to get show scenes. We're going to find out what this attraction is about. And we got fucking nothing again. Nothing. I mean, it's crazy. I learned more about the Big Hero 6 Pacific Wharf thing, which we knew nothing about 12 hours ago, than I did about this Tiana thing, which we've known about for 2 years now. I mean, it's crazy to me that there's no information out there, and this ride opens in like 18 months. And that's what frustrates me. I don't know.
I think you have advocates for this attraction. And I'm not saying this to spare anyone. I'm saying I think you have people who are big champions of this attraction, right? Who want this attraction to be the best it can be. I know I am. Look, listen. As much as I do, love Splash Mountain, and I might, I don't necessarily agree with this change out or whatever. At the end of the day, I want the best attraction in that space that there possibly could be, whether that takes the form of Splash Mountain or any other IP related to it. So when I heard about Prince of the Frog, I was like, you know what? If there was one IP that could, make best use of this attraction and its space and its amazing show building and so forth, I think this is one of them. As far as I am right now, I just haven't seen that materialize. Right. I just haven't seen that reflected in what we've been shown. And look, I think people who are championing this attraction, who want to be, amazing, showcase of Imagineering prowess and so forth, and want something that kind of, outdoes Splash Mountain, right, and the legacy that it has. You're not even giving anything for them. And I happen to, find myself, in that camp, every once in a while, right? I go back and forth, but I would love to say, hey, you know what? Splash Mountain was a great ride, but I think this is going to be even greater. I think this is going to be spectacular. I can't say that right now. I just can't. And I wish I could. And it's so frustrating that I can't.
Well, and it's exceptionally frustrating because it has that potential, because you can make this kind of like a next gen sort of Pirates, right? Where like, okay, Pirates gave us New Orleans, right? We're gonna do the New Orleans thing on steroids, on this huge, massive kind of show building log flume thing, and we're gonna take that New Orleans theme, just gonna amplify it by like 20, right? And that's what I'm hoping for, like this really great kind of like celebration of New Orleans, and I want that, but I don't see anything. They have to give me something to, hang my hat on a little bit. And I'm not seeing that. I was disappointed we didn't hear anything about this attraction today. I was kind of hoping yesterday. Look, I wouldn't say bullish about the model. I'm not bullish about the model at all. I don't hate it. I don't love it. I'm kind of like, okay, it's kind of the same with the water tower, but I was kind of hoping like, okay, well today though, I'll be able to give you my audience, and even myself, like an official opinion on this thing. Like, okay, this is where I stand. I can't do that. I can't do that. They didn't give me anything again today. So we don't have any concept art. We don't really have anything. I don't have any music. We don't have I don't understand. This thing has been in the works for 2 years now. Imagineering has nothing to show for this thing in 2 years. I just find this very, very strange. Like there's no concept art. They can just give us like red meat, like concept art. Like, okay, Imagineering, we don't need it to be verbatim. Like, okay, if the concept art doesn't pan out exactly, that's fine. But can you give us something like an idea? Nothing.
Yeah. I remember saying this to WW Pro, who we had on the show a few weeks ago. I remember saying to him, this is the most bizarre development process that I've ever seen attached to any single attraction. The announcement was weird. Everything about this has been very kind of strange. And this is more of that. And I echo a lot of your comments. It's like, look, this has been in development apparently for years before. Now I have some questions about that, obviously, and especially as these things have kind of poured themselves out. But honestly, it's like, you've been working on this for supposedly years. You now have 2 years of development with this thing having been announced, and you still have nothing really to show for it other than a model that was just basically a redressed Splash Mountain model, and maybe some story elements. I really don't know what to make of it, and it's so frustrating because it's like, this is not any. This is not a normal attraction. This is Splash Mountain. This is something that's been beloved by many people, over the decades. Moreover, this is the first, attraction featuring, Tiana, this amazing Black princess, and I think a lot of people are kind of, holding out this kind of hope that what we get to represent this character is going to live up to the name that is Tiana, to her kind of story, her legacy, while also doing something that lives up to Splash Mountain or maybe even supersedes it.
Right.
And to be left hanging in this way, to be, to not have any of those kind of that apprehension answered, or the hesitancy answered, it is incredibly frustrating. And honestly, the reason why we didn't get anything from this attraction, I think, is because I don't even think they know what they're going to do.
No, I think that's correct. That's the only explanation. That's really the only explanation. Because there has to be artwork or something. If they have a plan and they know what they're going to do, and this is the direction we're moving in, they have to have some sort of artwork or something in place. This ride opens in like a year and a half. There has to be something. The only explanation is they don't know. That's the only explanation. That's it.
That is the only explanation, OG. I don't really know what other explanation that anybody could provide. Honestly, it's just they don't know. And that's why we haven't seen anything. I think they have some idea of where they're going in terms of the story, but I don't think they themselves have worked out all the details inside. Otherwise, we would have seen it. We would have gotten more than missed, let's say, to put a different point on it.
All right, 100%. Well, brother, I want to thank you for joining us today. I know you're on the road, and really, really do appreciate you joining us in these circumstances and everything. And it was a lot of fun talking today about D23 Expo. We will definitely do more deep dives into everything today. These projects that were announced and elaborated on, not you, Tiana, but everything else that was elaborated on. We will definitely do new upcoming videos on this going forward. This new Avengers ticket, King Thanos thing, and the Hulk, and World of Color, and the fireworks, and I know George will dive into a lot of this stuff with Citrus Corner, with the Walt Disney World stuff and all that. Many videos to come, but it was really kind of cool to kind of do like this, video with you, Dre, today, and kind of touch upon and kind of give like initial reactions to it. It was a lot of fun. Right? Kind of set the foundation to kind of baseline.
Initial reactions. Yep. And I just wanted to go ahead and add, just in case I wasn't necessarily intelligible in various parts of this conversation, I guarantee the folks at home, I'll look over the footage, I'll see what points may have not been clear or whatever, and I'll reiterate them in future shows. We're going to have a lot of shows on this. Don't even worry about it. But OG is right. It was really cool to kind of get initial thoughts on tape for you guys, because it's our unvarnished, honest opinion.
Right, and it's fresh. Like like this happened just a couple hours ago, so it's these fresh kind of raw opinions, and to get them out there early is important. And you sounded, honestly, Dre, you sounded 99% of the time today. You sounded fantastic. There was a little time when you were going through the mountain, you cut out a little bit, but for the most part, you sound really crisp and clear. We heard you fantastic, but I'll let you go ahead and close it out. If you can let everybody home know where they can find you on social media, sir.
Well, the best place to find me is going to be at that guy on Twitter. Like we have been saying, we're going to be doing a giveaway as soon as I reach 1,000, and we are very, very close. I haven't checked the numbers today, but like I said, we're very, very close. And guys, you want to go ahead and follow, because I think that might be part of the process in determining who actually gets this giveaway. So definitely go ahead and do that. Yeah, you can go ahead and look it up at Vash Sky. That's going to be at Vash Sky. V is in Victor, ASHSKY. You can find me there. And if you like what you see here and you want to see more, well, it's going to be the channel you're watching right now at Orange Code 55, especially Squeezed, your source for juicy news and info, squeezed fresh right from the Grove. I will say, you use the word fresh in your description of this, and I do agree with you. I think it was, well, let's say, freshly squeezed right from the phone, which I think worked out.
It did. It definitely worked out. We heard you fantastic, and you're right. It was definitely fresh. And since we're talking freshly squeezed, I'll go ahead and give us a little drop.
Just squeeze it. Squeeze it.
Squeeze it. Right? Anyone at home remember those, by the way? Like, if you were like a 90s kid, I'm sure you remember Squeeze-Its. Those were delicious. They were like basically frozen popsicles. you twisted the cap off and you would drink them, and they were really, really good. If you're a 90s kid, you remember those, comment down below. I'm really curious. I used to love those. I'm not a 90s kid. I'm actually a lot older than a 90s kid, but I was still a kid in the 90s, so I enjoyed them. But anyway, I digress.
We could never afford them. So this is bringing back painful memories. OG, thank you for that. No, joking. I'm joking. I did have them on occasion. They were pretty good.
They were pretty good. But Dre, thank you, brother, for coming on, talking some D23. They gave us a lot of stuff to talk about in the weeks and months and even years to discuss, and interesting times indeed in regards to Disney parks. I want to thank you so much. I want to thank everybody home for watching. We are going to be doing a lot of content on all this stuff very, very soon. We got that giveaway if Dre hits 1,000 followers on Twitter. So a lot of great stuff coming up on OG55. I want to thank you so much for watching. And as always, have a wonderful, wonderful day.